Hey there, my name's Curtis Lucas, and you're watching Empire Building. So, big news out of Marathon Patent this morning. This was the first news I picked up on when I started my morning research. Marathon Patent invests $150 million in Bitcoin. Marathon Patent CEO Merrick Okamoto actually reached out to Empire Building following the video that I published detailing the issues surrounding the digital currency miners of North America mining pool that it had founded with DMG blockchain. At the time, he just wanted to reach out and express his gratitude to the channel for me educating investors by cutting through all the BS that you tend to find out there. This is something that I definitely do pride myself in. It takes a great deal of effort and research to get to the bottom of these issues and explain them in a way that anybody can understand. He reiterated, as I did during that video, that had Mara not taken these steps to protect themselves and their shareholders, the company would have been at risk of being targeted by the controller of the currency from the Treasury Department, possibly facing sanctions, fines, or even a cease and desist order. So it's important to understand and look beyond the optics of how we might feel about this groundbreaking technology, but also as investors and the reality that we live in. But moving on from that, the news from today that Mara actually took $150 million of their corporate treasury and moved that into Bitcoin is far more impressive than the market seemed to have acknowledged. This move was even picked up and retweeted by none other than CEO Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy, as he too also expanded the number of Bitcoin on their own balance sheet around the same time that Mara did. During that time, MicroStrategy picked up another $10 million worth of Bitcoin at an average price of $31,808, a total of 314 Bitcoin. Adding that to their existing balance, they now hold 70,784 Bitcoin. At today's prices, that's an impressive $2.3 billion worth of Bitcoin. But now you may be asking yourself, it's one thing for a company like MicroStrategy to buy Bitcoin on the open market, but why would a mining company whose sole business is to mine Bitcoin, what purpose would they have of paying retail market value to add more Bitcoin to its balance sheet? Empire Building actually got a direct response from Merrick Okamoto regarding this issue. But I'm also going to expand on that based on my own perspective, why I think this was an incredibly smart move. What Merrick Okamoto had to say was basically that one of their goals is to become a pure Bitcoin play for institutional investors, similar to what MicroStrategy offers. Now, while MicroStrategy's core business model is not Bitcoin, they offer institutions an indirect exposure to Bitcoin's price and volatility through their own stock. They've basically become an impromptu ETF for Bitcoin. Now, while Mara's core business model is centered around Bitcoin, it's going to take Mara time to grow into that position. As it stands right now, Mara is still one of the smallest Bitcoin producers in the market. But as I've stated many times, that is going to change, and fast. But even at the incredible pace that they're going to be moving at, it will still take nearly a year to fully expand Mara's operations just to the levels that they've already planned. What's going to happen to Bitcoin's price during that time? And what guarantee would Mara be able to offer its investors that its shares will actually track appropriately to that price of Bitcoin? So now Mara has gone from being one of the smallest producers of Bitcoin to the largest producer of Bitcoin within 1 year. And on top of that, they also now have the largest stockpile of Bitcoin on their corporate balance sheet than any other public mining company in the world. As far as Bitcoin goes, they're surpassed only by MicroStrategy themselves. Now, as I'm recording this, the market has just recently closed, and Mara is actually down 8 cents or 0.44%. So obviously the market is not warming up to this news. But that's because, especially in the blockchain mining stocks, we've entered this prove it to me phase. We've been here before. The investors in this space seem to be of the opinion that this correction isn't over yet. And to that, I pose this question. who do you think is selling right now? Because you have people like Michael Saylor and Marathon Patent themselves who are buying, along with many other institutional players. So if institutions are buying at this dip, who do you think is selling? And the more they sell, what do you think institutions will do? Let's go even deeper into this. Mara purchased $150 million worth of Bitcoin. That equates to 4,812.66 Bitcoin, which calculates to an average cost of $31,167.79. That's actually slightly cheaper than what Michael Saylor was able to pick up his 314 Bitcoin for. In one of the articles I read about this, MYDIG, the firm that Mara used to execute this order, completed the order within 4 hours of trading without moving the price of Bitcoin. To highlight just how well timed that was, their average cost of $31,167. If you draw a line through the chart of Bitcoin's price, Bitcoin only spent roughly 12 hours below that line. So the opportunity to get it any cheaper than they did not last very long. So in my opinion, why would a mining company decide to pump $150 million of its newly found corporate treasury into Bitcoin, other than the reasons that Merrick Okamoto already stated? Well, partly, I believe, it's for the same reasons that Michael Saylor did it. Marathon has bold and big plans for the future. They have the capital to do that, but they're facing the same problem of inflation that Michael Saylor's company is facing. They know that future acquisitions and the cost of capital is going to increase dramatically over the next 3 to 5 years. But as a mining company, why would they choose to invest that in Bitcoin now when they could just buy miners and mine the Bitcoin at their cost, which is approximately $4,400 per Bitcoin? Why would they pay such a hefty premium? And the answer is quite simple, and it simply comes down to math. As I've mentioned before, throughout the entire world, with all miners hashing on the blockchain, only 900 Bitcoin are produced every single day. So even if Mara was somehow able to accumulate all of those Bitcoin for themselves, it would take nearly 5.5 days for that to happen. Now, obviously, that's impossible. I only outline this to explain how much of the supply on the open market of Bitcoin that Mara actually absorbed. It's 5.5 days of all the newly minted Bitcoin. But how long would it take Mara to mine those coins themselves? If you were to take all of Mara's future hash power that won't be installed until Q1 of 2022, with today's difficulty rate, that would take 90 days to accumulate the number of Bitcoin that they purchased in 4 hours. But what about their current and upcoming installed hash power? I did the math based on all the monthly deliveries that they'll be accepting of S19 Pro miners over this coming year. And assuming rapid deployment of all of those miners, accounting for that growing hash power, it would take them nearly the entirety of 2021 to acquire the same number of Bitcoin that they were able to purchase within 4 hours during this recent dip in the market. Anyone care to venture a guess what they think Bitcoin will be worth by the end of this year? How attractive do you think this balance sheet will be to institutional investors now? But of course, this is still speculation. To assign any multiple or value to this type of acquisition, you'd have to believe that Bitcoin is going to continue to rise substantially. But being a math guy myself, it simply comes down to the numbers. Think about it. We have miners who are buying Bitcoin, not selling it. How many others do you think might be holding on to their Bitcoin, or perhaps even considering buying more on the open market themselves? I've even suggested that Riot do this back in December when they announced that they were raising $200 million. We may invest the net proceeds temporarily until we use them for their stated purpose as applicable. God, I hope they buy more Bitcoin with it.
You have no power here.
As of now, it doesn't appear like they took me up on that suggestion, but it certainly would have paid off by now. The point I'm making here is, What is happening to the supply of Bitcoin on the open market? Where are the institutions even getting it from? Because it doesn't look like it's coming from the miners. Miners are all raising cash and hoarding their Bitcoin. I think the situation we're looking at right now is Bitcoin simply establishing itself within this range. I don't know how much longer it will stay here, but there seems to be little motivation for it to head lower from where we are now, considering there's almost no selling pressure in this market. Institutions who just entered this space are not going to unload their Bitcoin and face those short-term capital gains costs. It just doesn't make any sense. Their only concern right now is acquiring more and more Bitcoin and facing this never-ending problem of there not being enough available. This most recent drawdown in price, as we know, was fueled by an enormous amount of misinformation, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. How many more events like that do you really think we're going to get? How many more people do you really think it's going to fake out? And how much of that Bitcoin do you think institutions are going to suck up? I said it before when I sold earlier this month that institutions can read charts just as well as I can. And I suggested that they probably weren't buying at those prices. Not because the prices were too high, but because they can read a chart and they know that this market is overextended. And they know that if they just wait a couple more weeks, they'll be able to pick those up at substantially lower prices and at far greater volumes. And now they're doing exactly that. Going forward from here, I don't know what Mara's strategy is going to be. Even though I was able to get some direct correspondence with Merrick Okamoto, I still don't have any inside information here. In my opinion, if I was to venture a guess, I would assume that Mara has no intention of selling any of the Bitcoin they mine in the near or midterm future. They've got plenty enough cash on their balance sheet to cover any and all of their expenses throughout the entire year of 2021. I suspect many other mining companies are thinking along the same lines. There just is not enough selling pressure in this market to drive the prices much lower than they already have been. So like I said, who's selling? I hope it's not you. Michael Saylor also referenced an article from CoinDesk, which also covered this topic of Marathon's $150 million purchase. CoinDesk also received a similar statement from Merrick Okamoto stating that the Bitcoin buy accelerates his mining company's transformation into a pure-play Bitcoin investment option for crypto-hungry Wall Street traders. And that CoinDesk article also went on to say this: while fellow public crypto miners Riot Blockchain and Hut 8, a Canadian firm, also hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet, those larger miners amassed their troves by mining and holding, not like Marathon through a direct investment model. They've been more successful by the numbers. In Q3 2020, Riot reported $2.4 million in mining revenue, and Hut 8 disclosed $4 million. Marathon's far smaller mining fleet generated just $835,184 in revenue in the same period. On this note, I also wanted to take this opportunity to announce that I've also been in contact with Hut 8, and I'm currently trying to set up an opportunity to tour their facilities in Medicine Hat, Alberta. I'm very excited about this because this is a huge step forward for the channel to start to get recognition from this sector. I'm very proud that the leaders in this space have taken notice of the work that I've been putting into this channel, trying to educate investors about this sector and the opportunity that it presents. As the channel continues to grow, I hope to expand on more and more opportunities like this that will help bring you even greater content as time goes on. Being able to establish direct contact with these companies will provide the channel with exclusive content that you won't be able to get anywhere else. Now, I'm not talking about inside information. I'm simply talking about content. It wasn't that long ago that gaining this kind of exposure, you'd have to be CNBC or something like that. But in this day and age, even news and information is becoming decentralized, where someone like myself, provided the content is pure, can gain exclusive access to industry leaders like Hut 8 and Marathon Patent. I've also been working on an in-depth look at Hut 8, which will be coming out within the next week, So make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of this exciting content yet to come. And if you enjoy this kind of content, make sure you leave a like. It'll help the channel to grow and expand its reach to more and more viewers. But that's all for this one. Now let's get back to empire building. Bye.